So I have seen some sensationalism about this one a
Yeah,
little bit.
it's not. That's not an entirely accurate framing.
Yeah, because what happened is the Colorado court has argued, or the Supreme Court has argued in Colorado that talk therapy is a viable form of therapy still for people who want to pursue conversion therapy. That's what they argued. Now, granted, yes, the end result of that is abuse for LGBTQ kids, because that's what talk therapy is. It's somebody saying, you're not gay, actually. You should love your body, actually. It's things that sound reasonable on the surface, but are actually somebody trying to effectively groom a kid into not being themselves. Like that's what it is. So in effect, yes, it is abuse. But also, there's a lot of sensationalism going around about this particular case all over the internet.
Okay. So the sensationalism that I would jump on is that they haven't overturned that particular ban. They have just sent it back down to the lower court so that they can adjudicate whether or not this is a First Amendment issue, or properly adjudicate that. So it's not like bans on conversion therapy are now illegal in this all across the states. Like that was what I first thought when I saw the headlines. That is not what happened here. There's a non-zero chance that it comes back after they said, yeah, no, it is a First Amendment issue, and then it does become that. But that has not happened yet.
Yeah, this doesn't mean that some major change has happened right now. It means
However,
that there's an ongoing fight.
I would like to push back against your... I don't know if you were just doing devil's advocate there by saying, like, because it's talk therapy, then it is freedom of speech sort of thing. Because there's a difference between I am expressing my thoughts and opinions or whatever, and I am providing medical care.
No, right. So that's why I said if you remember what I said specifically, I said, in effect, this is abuse.
Yes.
Because what happens is this. The way it's being sensationalized in a lot of outlets is like the Supreme Court just said that conversion therapy's good and it should be what's being pursued. There's a lot of weird ways this has been framed. I agree that there's a difference between a person's freedom of speech and how far that should be allowed to go, and then what can be used and construed as medical advice. And when you are the therapist in this position, most everything you say is going to be a form of medical advice, and there should be restrictions on
therapy. Has a standard of care.
Now,
and conversion therapy is very much against that. So it's like, if you offer conversion therapy, you should not be allowed to offer therapy.
Right. I agree with that.
It'd be like, yeah, I'm not arguing with you at this point.
Okay.
But like that would be like if a doctor refuses to, administer normal childhood vaccines unless they first amputate the child's left arm.
Yeah, that would be
like
abuse.
This is in the same lines. Like, I express myself by amputating children's arms. Like, that is very obviously not free speech, but it's effectively the same thing when it comes to like a medical care scenario, which that is what therapy is. Mm-hmm. It's like, just because it's called talk therapy doesn't mean it's just me talking.
Yeah, no, I understand. The reason I said the talk therapy thing is that's what it's specifically focusing on.
They're saying the talk therapy. Cirrus, I'm not arguing with you.
Okay.
I'm arguing the same point as you.
But I want to fight you!
Well, then, all FPSs are the same.
There. Oh God, we're back to that again.
No, we're not. We're not doing that again. Yeah, no, but like, I have a little bit of experience with this. I should mention this was sent to me by everybody. So Progress Only sent it to me. First time sender Laura sent it to me. My anonymous source sent it to me, and that was all after I decided to cover it on my own as well. So everybody wants to talk about this because it's heinous. But yeah, no, my partner is a therapist, and it's like, to say that therapy is not like it's just, it's covered by freedom of expression. You can say anything in there. She has to be so careful about what she says because it is medical. Like, there are things she's not allowed to say to the clients. There's things like she is really good at picking out when people are not neurotypical, when they're autistic or ADHD. She got into some minor trouble fairly early on in her career as a therapist, because she had suggested to one of her clients that they had ADHD or autism, I forget which. And then they disagreed with that, and their doctor told them something else or whatever. I don't know the details. I'm not privy to the details. But even just suggesting to someone who has not brought it up themselves that they may have autism or ADHD could potentially be license revoking for her.
Correct, because in this case we're talking about, in this case also the specifics on this. I think getting into the specifics on this would also help people who might not know what exactly is being talked about, because even just from the title, it doesn't exactly explain everything. But Kaylee Childs, who is a therapist in Colorado, who's a Christian talk therapist, is what she said, says the state ban violates her First Amendment rights. When that shouldn't be the case. Your First Amendment doesn't allow you to harm people.
Well, Shannon Q has a nice video on her channel, which, assuming it's still up, she hasn't been active as a YouTuber for a little while, but she has a video
posting
on
a little
Christian...
more recently, I noticed.
Has she?
There's like 2 videos now. There was a gap for like 3 years. Now there's like 2 videos.
YouTube has decided that I don't want to see her stuff because I haven't watched it in a long time. It doesn't matter that I clicked the subscribe button. But yeah, no, there's a video from a few years ago where she went into what it takes to become a Christian counselor, and how there are blurred lines between Christian therapy and Christian counseling, and you can be a Christian therapist and call yourself a therapist without actually being qualified as a therapist. So I could see this being one of those little weird niche scenarios where this person is allowed to call themselves a therapist but isn't technically a therapist, so this doesn't count as medical care. It does just count as them having a chat with someone, in which case, yeah, if you're just having a chat with someone, it would be a violation of your First Amendment rights to not be allowed to say, hey, I don't think you're gay.
So the specifics on this is that there's a blurred line between speech and conduct, and the argument that she is putting forward is that what she is saying is speech, not conduct. She should be restricted based on conduct specifically, and that this is a speech regulation specifically, and therefore there's a difference. I think
when
you and I would
talk therapy. The talk is the conduct.
Correct. So this is where you and I agree that the actual meat of the matter is that regardless of what she thinks, the things she says are supposed to have medical weight. Because therapy is a thing. Like, for instance, Saki, she's able to go through therapy. That is something that is actually covered under our insurance. So she actually has a therapist now. The reason that's covered under insurance is because therapy is considered medical. Your brain is as much of a piece of your body as everything else in your body. So when she's trying to say, this is a violation of my speech, it's not. But again, the argument is not that the Supreme Court said that conversion therapy good, actually. The argument is there's going to be a very long fight now about this shit.
Yeah. They have to determine whether or not medical care counts as medical care.
We are such a non-functioning second world country.
Do our medical practitioners have to adhere to the standard of care, or can they torture their patients and call it freedom of speech?
Yeah,
that's a really tough question.
The argument she's trying to say is because of today's ruling, families will have more options and states won't be able to shut those options down. But the thing is, if the options are, you said,
provide medical care or torture my child.
Yeah, that is effectively what the options are.
One of those options shouldn't be on the table.
Yeah. One of those things is medically irresponsible to have on the table. And if you are allowed to have it on the table, then it lends legitimacy to that. There is a lot of problems with this. All agreed.
Yeah. Popping in, I hoped this ruling was an April Fool's joke. Nope, it wasn't.
Nope.
Although Trump sat in for the oral arguments for the what was the case on the 14th Amendment thing. Apparently, he stormed out when the judges were all like being a bit more critical of the arguments on the government side than Trump would like. So we're not covering that, but we do have one of the tweets has a quote from the lawyer for Trump. Not for Trump. Well, I mean, it is effectively for Trump, but the government's lawyer.
What's confusing to me is that only Jackson was the dissenting opinion on this. I don't understand that.
That was disappointing. And you know what? When I first read it, I read it in the reverse, where like I read it as the Supreme Court is ruling against conversion therapy. And then when I saw that Ketanji Brown Jackson was the lone dissenter, I was like, what? Like Alito and Gorsuch and Roberts were all in favor of banning conversion therapy, but Jackson wasn't? And then I read it properly and was like, oh, that still doesn't make any sense, but at least it's not as out of whack as I thought.
So Old Gus in my chat is pointing out that freedom of speech doesn't apply to a lot of functional speech. As an example, a lawyer in court and public interpreters on the job don't actually have freedom of speech the same way that you or I do on a fucking podcast. If you're in the military, especially if you're high-ranking in the military, your freedom of speech is, in fact, limited. If you are working in any governmental job, your freedom of speech does get limited. There are certain positions...
I don't know, didn't they... Oh, wait, no, I was right. I was about to bring up Kim Davis because I know she was headed for the Supreme Court, but they refused to hear her case.
So like, there 100% is a line that ought not be crossed where speech is concerned, and where that line sits does depend on your occupation. So no,
just don't use the yelling fire in a crowded theater.
Because it's a bad example.
Because everybody gets that one wrong, and I forget how to get it right.
So, yeah.
I'm not a lawyer, but if you need a lawyer...
Hey, you did the legal thing before I did today.
Someone had to do it.
Someone did have to do it. You're right. So, yeah, the fact that conversion therapy actually is causally linked with higher rates of suicide is probably a good fucking reason not to allow it. But if this does go through, it does kind of open the gate for some other shit. Like, if this ultimately, instead of being passed up and down through the courts, if this ultimately does end in her favor, and this is considered perfectly fine, there's a point that Axo brought up, and that's that there is a way this could be twisted against them. And that is that now...
All of those bans for being trans in public?
Not just that. If we're talking about conversion therapy, oftentimes we're talking about kids. So we are allowed to say harmful things to kids in therapy, and that is just considered protected by freedom of speech if this all goes through. If that is the case, things that conservatives consider harmful to kids, like trans healthcare, suddenly become protected by the First Amendment with this, which is a wild way this could twist against them. Yeah. I would prefer it not have to go that way. I'd prefer everything...
I prefer 0 children be tortured.
I would prefer everything go through the scrutiny of the experts in the fields of which they pertain to. That's what I want. What confuses me is that the Supreme Court doesn't have to consult any of those fucking experts.
Yeah, but I have no faith that this court is going to be consistent enough to actually apply it equally in both scenarios.
No, I don't either.
Now, if it is delayed long enough that Republicans are no longer in office and a couple of the Republican Supreme Court people have died, which they're not young, a lot of them. There's a couple in their 70s, late 70s. So if they
trip and fall.
Yeah, but like not till after Republicans are out of office.
Mm-hmm.
And then if Democrats have all 3 branches of government, then in theory we could get an actual functioning court again.
In theory. But for now, we have to still be traumatized by the words in a 6-3 opinion.
Yep.
Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.